Hola, ¿qué tal? Caminantes de la noche, criaturas nocturnas. Y ha llegado el momento de continuar el episodio. Ya es la medianoche, así que continuamos con el acto 1. Llevarme al hospital. Dice, analizar la sangre de William Bishop en la mesa de laboratorio. Medianoche en el jardín del bien y el mal. Encontrar la billetera perdida en el jardín. La billetera del guardia, ¿no? Que estaba, al que nos encontramos al principio. Y que nos contó que dejó a uno por ahí, a uno de esos vampiros, Cranks o Scans, no me acuerdo cómo dijo que se llamaban. Estaban por ahí y imagino que nos vamos a tener que encargar de ese que dejó ahí libre. Pero primero lo primero, vamos a hablar con el doctor. ¿Dónde estaba? Ya me acordé.
Not now.
Perdón, pues. Entonces no.
Please come back later.
El doctor Suewa, no sé. Seward, algo así. Llevar la sangre de Bishop a la mesa de laboratorio. Ah, bueno. Entonces sería donde estábamos, ¿no? Bueno, vamos a ver. Nuestra mesa de trabajo, creo que es aquí. No, es aquí. Muestra... Ahí está. ¿Y ahora?
William Bishop's blood is much more unstable than human blood and shows extensive mutation. But this is not what happened to me. I must keep on searching. The sun is about to rise. I can feel it. I'll continue tomorrow night. I have so much time now.
Creo que eso es lo que debimos hacer en el episodio anterior, ¿no? Entonces... O sea, es que antes de dormir vamos a buscar la billetera del señor. Es una misión secundaria, si no estoy mal, entonces vamos a hacer eso. Aparte nos encargamos del crank. Can Snack, no me acuerdo cómo se llaman esos vampiros zombies. ¿Qué se hizo, colega? Bueno, el jardín trasero. Aquí está. Pues si esta es la entrada principal, tendríamos que buscar un jardín trasero, ¿no? O encontrar el jardín al menos. ¿Se salió aquí?
Has lost its effect on me, but the suffering continues.
Fear and disgust on every street corner. The daily routine.
Entiendo. Ah, podemos hablar con las personas, ¿eh?
It's locked, all right.
Después venimos a ver qué quieren. Primero, lo primero, la billetera del señor. Un jardín trasero. ¿Por dónde podríamos encontrar uno? Una botella pequeña. Bueno, eso de ahí parece un jardín. Ah, escalera. Clandestino. ¿Qué está haciendo? Escarbando la basura. muestra robusta, diluida. Bueno, estamos juntando más muestras y no había billetera, entonces no fue este. Pero asumimos que este es el jardín, ¿no? Ah, caray. Un vampiro cazando vampiros, vampiros chafas. Como los primeros vampiros que encontró Luigi en la entrevista con el vampiro en Europa, que eran como así. Más o menos eso los describió como zombies. Más. Me muerden, tenía las manos garrasposas. Bueno, pues si también los voy a morder, como que no. Wow. Se mueve igual que yo. Eso no va bien. Vamos a calmarnos. Las extremidades todas feas. Y no. Ah, bien. Bueno, no. Una fotografía en una cartera. Ah. Esto se parece al doctor. Esta es la billetera. Una fotografía de una pareja cariñosa y sonriente con unas palabras escritas en el dorso. Milton y Pipa para siempre. Oh. La noche en el jardín del bien y el mal, devolver a su dueño. Pues era este, ¿no? Si no estamos sucios, no. Si no van a sospechar, ¿no? Ah, bueno, estamos en un hospital, podríamos estar en medio de una operación. Escucho gritos. Era por aquí. Creo que no. Vamos a echar la vuelta.
I cannot enter.
Go back home, idiots!
Rayos, me perdí. Aquí están los videojuegos, soy malo con las direcciones.
I said stay away, sir!
Bueno, vamos a tratar de regresar sobre nuestros pasos. ¿Qué hay aquí? La ciudad. Ah, las cosas de... Necesitamos gente, bla 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 bla. Ah, bueno, es posible que aquí sea donde le perdonamos la vida a aquel delincuente. Bueno, aquel alborotador. Quizás si era por aquí. Diablos, no puedo creer que me haya perdido. Sus gritos dan un poco de miedo, Bueno, no hay de otra.
It's one of them!
Me mató. Bueno, el lado positivo es que parecíamos en el hospital, así que... Y ya tenemos la billetera. Entonces, en aquel momento salimos por aquí. Así que... no, al menos aquí estamos cerca. No, tal vez podemos entrar. Ah, bueno, ahí está. Tranquilos, Ahí estás.
Good evening, Milton.
Good evening, Doctor. Still trying to save lives?
Sobre su vida en Londres. Ya le hicimos esas preguntas, así que le vamos a dar su billetera de una.
I have some good news, Milton.
What? The epidemic's over?
I retrieved your wallet with all the money and a certain picture.
Well, yeah, Pippa Hawkins is my girl. So what? Is it the difference of skin colour that bothers you?
Not at all, Milton.
Good. Please, take this money anyway. To remind you to keep your mouth shut. Not everybody is as broad-minded as you, Dr. Reed.
Pippa es la enfermera, Habíamos destapado una pista, así que vamos a ver si logramos desbloquear una... No. Usted saca dinero por medio de la extorsión. No, bueno, no vamos a incomodarlo con esas preguntas, así que vamos a preguntar sobre su relación con la enfermera.
What's going on between you and Nurse Hawkins?
Pippa's tired. Tired of all this shit. Tired of all those corpses piling up. She's as depressed as I am.
Unidos por la desesperación, o los dos podrían ser despedidos. Eso suena muy altanero, así que... Bueno.
During the war, I witnessed a few couples just like you come together in difficult circumstances. It can be very damaging.
Maybe you're right. But we support each other. And that's all that matters.
Preguntémosle, pues los dos podrían ser despedidos.
You do realize you could both get fired. Hospital staff are not meant to have intimate relationships with one another.
Come on, Dr. Reed. Do you know how many rules are broken in this hospital every day just to keep it running? There's nothing wrong with what we're doing.
Preguntamos sobre la extorsión. Bueno.
Tell me why you're extorting money from some of the patients here.
If a patient wants a bed, he'll have to pay me a little fee. That's all.
Where did you get the idea for such an immoral scam?
Funny you should ask. The first time it was from a patient who bribed me to get a bed. It's only then I realized I could make a fortune.
Bueno, dejémoslo pues.
Goodbye, Milton.
They know we are
This is no
overwhelmed
time for
by this
self-pity. It is the
horrifying
last thing our
epidemic.
patients need.
¿De qué están hablando? ¿Conozco a este doctor ya? No, aún no. Bueno, hablemos de la enfermera ya que tenemos un poco más de información de ella.
Good evening, nurse. I'm Dr. Jonathan Reed, the new surgeon here at the Pembroke.
Dr. Swansea has already told us about you, sir.
Es otra.
I'm Nurse Gwyneth Brannigan. Welcome to the Pembroke Hospital.
Did he really? It's a good thing I wasn't hoping to keep a low profile.
All members of staff have already read about your new blood transfusion technique. Dr. Swansea made sure of that.
I see. Well, I'm a little surprised, but I suppose I'll just have to deal with this unexpected notoriety.
You must know, blood transfusions are Dr. Swansea's primary subject of research. He is convinced it is the future.
Conozcámoslo un poco más. No lo ataquemos con preguntas personales desde ya.
How are things here?
Not good, to say the least. We're struggling against an invisible enemy, more lethal than any bullet from a gun. It's hard, Doctor.
Un enemigo invisible.
An invisible enemy? Quite a poetic term for a disease, especially from a nurse.
Sorry, Doctor. These last few weeks have been exhausting. We could all do with a good night's sleep.
¿Cree que podría fracasar este hospital?
Do you think this hospital can survive the epidemic?
We are all volunteers here, and we're trying to hold fast, but how do we beat an invisible killer? Some nurses have already resigned.
Cuéntenos
I'm
sobre
not
el
familiar
personal.
with all the staff yet. Perhaps you could help me.
Brilliant professionals, most of them. Dr. Swansea has a gift for recruiting talent.
Most of them. Is there a problem I should know about, nurse?
It would be inappropriate for me to speak ill of a colleague.
Hable. Muy autoritario. Entonces, ¿alguien se destaca?
Is there anyone that stands out?
Well, I have never met someone as dedicated as Dr. Tippett. He should be a standard for us all here. If only he were younger.
Why should his age be a problem?
I guess it's fair to say he's always pushing himself to the limits. He just doesn't know when to stop and get some rest.
Una pista sobre Tippett.
Nurse Brannigan, if you do know something, please tell me. Anything you say will be held in confidence.
No. I may disagree with some conduct, but in the end, everybody is doing their best.
Está bien. ¿Las preguntas personales? Bueno, no tenemos nada más, así
Goodbye,
que
nurse. Call me if you need assistance.
vamos a ver, conozcamos al doc.
Good evening, sir.
So it is true. The famous Dr. Reed has joined us. I can't think of any better news during these terrible times.
Do we know each other?
Actually, yes. We met once before, at the Rockefeller University in New York.
Dr. Tippett, yes, I remember. I was assisting Professor Carell in his research about coronary bypasses. He had nothing but praise for you.
He was also very confident about your future. And look at you now. Eminent surgeon and blood transfusion specialist.
Tenemos una pista. No lo vamos a abordar así. Vamos a preguntarle cuál es la situación aquí. ¿Qué es lo que le estamos contando? Preguntando a todos, ¿no? Son como preguntas así para romper el hielo y empezar una socialización. Algo que me acabo de dar cuenta justo ahorita, arriba dice mesmerizar, presiona para obtener detalles, o sea que podríamos matarlo si queremos, pero no.
What is the Pembroke Hospital situation? And please, speak freely.
This hospital is not exactly the best of London. I'm sure you are used to working in a better environment.
Oh, pregunta importante que no se va a repetir. Vamos a ver, las personas son más importantes, la situación es igual en todas partes. No tenía muchas alternativas. Yo voy a decir las personas son más importantes.
It's more than enough. In any case, the personnel of a hospital are much more important to me than the building.
Don't be misled by appearances, Dr. Reed. This hospital does not lack talented people. It just lacks hope.
Cuénteme sobre el personal.
What can you tell me about the staff in the hospital?
Some are really good, and others are not so good. But during this troubled period, there is no time for slander. I prefer to focus on the positive character traits.
Está bien, personalidades positivas.
Tell me more about cherished people, then.
Nurse Brannigan is a pearl. She is the most helpful and dedicated nurse I've ever worked with. A clever and cheerful woman.
You really seem to admire her skills.
Tenemos una nueva pista.
I'll go even further. If she was a man, she would be a damn fine practitioner.
¿Qué pasa con la gerencia?
Any opinion about the management?
I don't always agree with Dr. Swansea's reserve, but I must admit he does all he can to keep this facility running during this crisis.
Ah, yes, the burden of command. I was fed up with this concept while serving as a medical officer.
Don't get me wrong. Swansea's a good administrator. I just wish he would get out of his office now and again.
Está bien. Preguntémosle pues, o no, mejor vámonos a conocerlo un poquito más en preguntas de personales, si es que podemos y no podemos. Hablemosle.
Goodbye, Dr. Tippett.
Vamos a hacer ahí la... Vamos a
If only
pretender...
I were young again. Just a dozen years or so.
Ahí está, ya le podemos preguntar, ya tenemos excusa, ya que se está quejando.
Good evening, Dr. Tippett.
Dr. Reed, any good news to share?
¿Está exhausto?
You're exhausting yourself, Corcoran. Maybe you should think about preserving your strength.
No. We must keep on healing all those poor souls. We are the last rampart before chaos. Once more unto the breach.
No tiene nada que demostrar. La enfermera Flanagan está preocupada o su actitud es irresponsable. Si le decimos de la enfermera le va a dar igual. Mejor digámosle, tranquilo, no tiene nada que demostrar.
You've nothing to prove, Dr. Tippett, to anybody, and we all praise your experience. Please, have some rest.
I am perfectly fine, and I am not too old for this job.
Está bien. Viejitos testarudos,
Goodbye, Dr. Tippett.
Bueno, ahora sí, vámonos. Algo que quería comentar es que este juego me está haciendo, bueno, concientizar un poco más, ya que estamos en una situación de pandemia, de cuarentena, de un virus letal alrededor del mundo. Que los médicos, el personal médico, tanto los enfermeros como los doctores, pues dan de todo, dan todo de ellos para luchar, y aquí lo podemos ver.
Good evening, miss. I'm Dr. Reed, the new surgeon at the Pembroke Hospital.
Se parece loca.
And who are you?
Your name has no meaning to me, mortal. You're nothing but dust blown by the winds of eternity.
I beg your pardon?
What are you begging for, mortal? My clemency? Well, tonight maybe I'm inclined to mercy. You'll never forget the night you met Thelma Howcroft.
You keep calling me mortal. Why is that? And if I'm mortal, what are you?
Well, Dr. Reed, if you must know, I'm a vampire.
Ah, caray, caray. ¿Usted es una mujer vampiro?
And why do you believe you're a vampire?
I don't need to believe anything. It is what I am. It is what I feel within this hollow shell of flesh.
Describa cómo se siente.
Please, describe to me how you feel. What is it like to be a vampire?
I can hear my body crumble from the inside as my flesh cracks and fades. I sense the last pulse of postulant blood within my drying veins. I need new blood.
¿Has escuchado hablar del síndrome de Cotard?
I see. Have you ever heard of Cotard's syndrome, Miss Howcroft?
Never.
It's a mental illness discovered by a French neurologist named Jules Cottard. The affected patients are delusional. They believe that they are putrefying, that they are dead, a ghost or a ghoul. Or in your case, a vampire.
Delusional, you say? Oh, sad and petty mortal. You can't even begin to understand the concept of immortality. And you think it is I who am delusional.
No, está bien, pues está bien. ¿Es usted paciente aquí?
I'm assuming you must be a patient here. Am I right, Miss Howard?
It's only a cover. To hide from my enemies. I can leave whenever I want. As a woman, a spirit, fog, or bat.
La cuidaremos.
The staff here are not your enemy. They're here to help you, to care for you.
I'm not speaking of the doctors in white. I'm speaking of the men and women who hunt me. For I am a vampire.
I see. Don't worry. These people will not find you here. I'll personally make sure they leave you alone.
Thank you, mortal. But do not interfere with them, for you are no match for those that hunt me.
Bueno, y se nos acaba de destapar una misión, creo. Investigaciones locales. Hay una nueva investigación de ciudadano disponible. Usa el menú para abrir las investigaciones locales. Investigaciones del ciudadano. Aquí se muestran las investigaciones del ciudadano categorizadas por distritos. Puedes comenzar una nueva búsqueda de ciudadano, rastreo con cuadro y luego el acceso al mapa. Está bien. Está bien. Nos va a dar pistas. Telma tiene el síndrome de Cotard y cree que es una vampiresa. ¿Cómo tratamos a los enfermos, no? O sea, hay que tratarlos para que se tranquilicen, seguirles el juego, ¿no? Para avanzar sus enemigos.
Who are these enemies you mentioned? Can you describe them?
I cannot say for sure. But I sense their eyes on me from nearby. I feel them watching me every time I visit the garden near the morgue.
Vamos a preguntarle quién es usted realmente.
Who are you really, Miss Howcroft? I mean, apart from being a vampire.
Is that not enough for you, puny mortal? What do you require? Proof of my powers?
I'm curious to know who you were before becoming a vampire.
It was such a long time ago, I don't remember. Centuries of unholy life can have strange effects on one's minds, you see?
Está bien, pues dejémosla ahí.
I'll leave you, Mistress of the Dark, to your nocturnal activities.
Un humano que finge ser un vampiro enfrente de un verdadero vampiro. Me preocupa un poco, vamos a ver qué dice.
Here again. Time has lost its effect on me.
Good evening, sir.
But the suffering
Can I help you?
Unless you're here to fix my face. No. I don't think you can help me.
I'm Dr. Reed. I've recently taken the position of head surgeon here. War injuries, am I right?
You guessed right, Doctor. German shell took my pretty little mug right off. But they still call me Thomas Elwood.
¿Cómo es su estadía aquí?
How is your stay with us, Mr. Elwood?
Oh, it's bliss. I just escaped death in the trenches to be surrounded again by the moans of the dying.
Can I ask you precisely why you're a patient here?
It's the pain, sir. The drugs don't work. It just hurts under the scars, if you get my drift.
Oh. Vamos a preguntar quién lo atiende.
Who is treating you? Is someone in particular looking after your case?
Nobody since the old and tired doctor spoke to me. Started to think I was forgotten about. Wouldn't blame you.
You don't seem worried by that.
My face hurts so much more when I smile or cry. I've learned it's easier not to speak. But be assured I'm smiling inside.
Pobre. ¿Puedo hacer algo?
Can I do anything for your pain?
Nurses gave me a bunch of pills. No effect. I told you. It's like the flames are under my skin, burning away.
Está bien, vamos a preguntarle un poquito más. ¿Estuvo mucho tiempo en el ejército?
Where were you stationed, sir? Did you serve for long?
I really don't want to talk about all this shit.
No offense. I was pushing too much. I served in France myself. I just wanted to know what happened to you.
You were an officer, weren't you? Then I doubt we fought the same war, sir. No offense.
Acerca de la enfermedad de la señorita Hawcroft.
How close are you to Miss Hawcroft? Are you aware that she thinks she is a vampire?
To wait for her next nibble is the best reason to stay here. Every time she approaches my bed, she treats me like something tasty. A normal person.
Aren't you afraid? She may hurt you if the game goes too far.
She's quite harmless, I can assure you. Her head's broken inside is all. While I'm busted on the outside. But she's still beautiful. Living proof that there's hope for me.
¿Dejó que lo mordiera? Bueno, preguntémosle primero, ¿está mentalmente perturbada?
You do realize she's mentally disturbed. It's called the Cotard syndrome. She truly believes she's a vampire.
In her madness, she never refers to my scars. And frankly, if I could, I'd join her world. It seems much more fun than the real one.
¿Dejó que lo mordiera?
So do you let her bite you? You know that's not sanitary.
And why not? She's only supping a few drops of my blood. And the pain, it's real for once.
She could decide to bite less willing patients.
Then it's another good reason for me to stay here, Doctor.
No puedo discutir con esa lógica, eh. Bueno, vamos a dejar tranquilo.
Goodbye for now, Mr. Elwood.
Damn. The pain.
¿Y este colega que está haciendo aquí? Porque no parece paciente. A ver qué onda. Ah, es el
Good
sacerdote.
evening, Mr. Hampton. How do you feel?
Dr. Reed, is it? Oh, sir, I must apologize for my behavior.
What do you mean?
I was not myself in the factory. Fear and exhaustion made me say awful things to you, I'm afraid.
You remained perfectly nice and polite. A little delirious, perhaps. But who wouldn't be after enduring an abduction?
Thank you, Doctor. That's a relief. Now all I need to do is rest and return to my flock.
Está bien. Vamos a preguntarle lo de William Bishop.
How did you end up in William Bishop's den?
I had received alarming news about his recent behavior. I went to his place and he refused to let me go.
¿Por qué lo secuestró?
Why did he abduct you?
William was an alcoholic. His addiction suddenly changed to blood. I don't know why. Just like a patient I met here. This Miss Hawcroft.
¿Usted es un héroe o un tonto?
You dared to enter this awful place alone. You're a hero, Mr. Hampton. Or a fool.
I'm just a man trying to help his friends, Dr. Reed. William Bishop was a conflicted soul, searching for light.
Está bien, pues vamos a ver de la situación del muelle de East End.
What is the general situation in the East End docks?
The situation has always been tough, with a lot of tensions between the gangs and the dockers' trade union. The wet boot boys are very nervous since they lost their leader.
¿Lo ha amenazado la pandilla?
Has the gang been threatening you?
Ah, no. I've had this nickname for so long, you know, the sad saint of the East End. No one dares to bug a saint, not even criminals.
¿Y quién lidera ahora?
Who leads the gang now?
Since Clay Cox went missing, it's his wife Edwina who runs the show, with the assistance of her minion, Booth Digby.
Cerca de Tom Watts.
Do you know Tom Watts, the bartender from the Turtle? I met him before I found you in the canning factory.
Tom? Yes, of course. Always the helping hand, good old Tom. Without men like him, corruption and despair would have wiped out the East End long ago.
Corrupción.
Who should I avoid in this part of town, then? Any particularly evil figures?
Not really. Most men and women are just doing their best. And it's not my habit to speak ill of people I know, Doctor.
Hay desesperación.
People are still in despair.
How could it be otherwise? The authorities have left us all to rot in this contagious nightmare. No drugs, no advice, nothing. It's a damn shame.
Lo entiendo, lo entiendo. ¿Cómo se siente?
How do you feel, Mr. Hampton? Medically speaking, I mean.
I feel exhausted. Beyond exhaustion, actually. William drank so much of my blood in his madness. I feel empty.
You're in good hands here. Dr. Swansea is well versed in blood transfusion, and I'm sure he'll take the best care of you.
Thank you, sir. I believe all I need is rest, and then I can go back to the people who need me.
¿Cómo se gana la vida?
What do you do for a living, Mr. Hampton? I can't help but notice the cross around your neck.
I manage a night asylum for the poor and homeless of the docks, and I try to guide the lost and hesitant on the right path to our Lord.
¿Usted es cura?
Are you a priest, Mr. Hampton? A deacon, maybe?
Not at all, Doctor. I'm just a man of faith willing to preach the good word.
Esa es una muy buena pregunta. ¿Por qué no usó su cruz contra William?
Why didn't you use your cross against William Bishop? To repel him somehow?
That's a very strange question, Doctor. A cross is no magical token, if that's what you were trying to say. Not mine, anyway.
¿Ha hecho algún amigo desde su llegada?
Have you made friends since you arrived?
Not really, but I recognize Miss Harriet Jones. I knew her when she lived by the docks. That poor woman had such a miserable life.
You never came to see her here at Pembroke? Receiving visits when sick can be an important part of the healing process, you know. We're not just bodies.
You're preaching to the converted now, Doctor. To be truly honest, I thought she was dead. She left the docks many months ago.
Está bien, pues.
Goodbye, Mr. Hampton. We'll talk again later.
Fear and disgust on every street corner. Daily routine.
So many deaths. I wish I could have said a lot of them.
Bueno, ¿nos reflejamos o no?
Good evening, Dr. Strickland.
And good evening to you, Dr. Reed. Can I be of any help?
Ah, bueno. Tenemos una pregunta más aquí. Sobre el otro doctor que está en contra de los métodos de este, ¿no? Ya me acuerdo. La versión de Ackroyd por los métodos modernos.
What do you think of Dr. Ackroyd's aversion to modern medical methods?
It's a shame he's so narrow-minded. Dr. Swansea taught me that science is about exploring uncharted territory. I'm convinced that's true.
With the influenza and all that's going on, you should put your differences aside, don't you think? Why is it so difficult to work together?
I believe that if Dr. Ackroyd had been the one to discover the transfusion process, he would be the first to recommend its use.
So you believe it's just a question of jealousy and pride?
Dr. Ackroyd is as proud as he is blinded by his obsolete concept of medical science.
Ya. Está bien.
Goodbye, Dr. Strickland.
Oh, aquí no habíamos entrado. Ah, caray.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Reed. Can I help at all?
No.
Really? Why are you here then?
I don't want to talk. My throat hurts too much.
I suppose that this pain is the reason you're here. Is someone taking care of you?
Ay, güey.
Yes. And no.
Could you at least tell me your name, sir?
Mortimer. Mortimer Goswick.
¿Cuánto le duele la garganta?
How painful is your throat, Mr. Goswick?
So painful I'd rather not talk at all, Doctor.
Entiendo. Debemos comunicarnos.
I'm sure you realize a doctor and his patient have to communicate, sir. Would it help if I gave you some paper and a pen?
Not really.
I see. Then maybe it's not just your throat that hurts, Mr. Goswick. Perhaps your sore throat is just the consequence of something more hurtful.
Yes, maybe. But I don't want to talk or even write about it now.
Está bien, pues. Vamos a ser abusivos.
Tell me about yourself, Mr. Goswick.
I don't want to talk, Doctor.
Está bien.
How painful is your throat, Mr. Goswick?
So painful I'd rather not talk at all, Doctor.
Lo dejaré descansar.
I'll let you get some rest, then.
I'm all right. Don't waste your time with me.
¿Usted quién es, señora?
Good evening, madam. Can I help you?
It's my son who needs you, sir.
I'm Dr. Jonathan Reed. How can I help your son?
I'm Beatrice Goswick, mother of Mortimer Goswick. Could you check on him, please, Dr. Reed? I've heard much of your talents as a physician.
Tiene el pelo raro, ¿no? Cuénteme... ¿Tiene quejas de la recepción?
What do you think of your reception here? Any complaints?
I have had the uttermost reservations about this hospital since we arrived. But we had no other choice, considering the state of emergency.
Is there something in particular that's bothering you?
Some of the staff were not especially welcoming. I suspect they're not accustomed to dealing with patients of such social standing.
Cuénteme sobre usted.
What can you tell me about yourself, Mrs. Goswick?
Not much to say. Just take care of my Mortimer and I'll cover all the expenses. That's all that matters.
¿Qué hace de su vida? Sí, eso sería muy...
May I ask if you have an occupation, Mrs. Goswick?
I'm a teacher by profession. I teach young women who are more ambitious about their futures than their families.
Seamos groseros, preguntémosle, ¿tan rica es?
Are you really that rich? Most of the patients here are of a more humble origin, if I may say so.
Yes, thanks to my husband. May he rest in peace. I can cover any needed medical expenses.
Está bien. Cuénteme de su llegada.
Tell me more about your arrival at the Pembroke Hospital. What gave you such a bad first impression?
The ambulance driver was quite rude, for a start. And that nurse, Miss Hawkins, seems to have quite a dubious attitude.
What do you mean?
She managed to secure a bed for my son despite the epidemic. It was a relief, but it wasn't cheap.
¿Le cobró?
She charged you for a bed?
Yes, and I paid without question, considering the urgency of the situation.
Estamos descubriendo aquí cosas raras, ¿eh? Comparto su estupor.
I share your concern, Mrs. Goswick. Be sure that I'll talk to the people involved.
I don't expect compensation, Dr. Reed. But I'm aware such behavior would not be tolerated in other hospitals.
Está bien.
Goodbye, Mrs. Goswick.
I'm all right. Don't waste your time with me.
Ok, me voy. Es el viejito. Quiero encontrar al otro doctor. Esta es... Ah, esta no la conozco.
Good evening, nurse.
Good evening, Doctor. I don't think we've been introduced yet. My name is Pippa Hawkins.
And I'm Dr. Jonathan Reed.
La novia del guardia.
Dr. Swansea has recently offered me a position in this hospital.
Well, it's a euphemism that your help will be appreciated, Doctor.
¿Cómo está la situación aquí?
How would you describe the situation at the Pembroke Hospital?
It's serious. The flu is wreaking havoc amongst the staff and patients. We are running out of everything.
La gripe española no durará para siempre.
Nurse Hawkins, the Spanish flu won't last forever. Even the Black Plague didn't kill everyone.
I wish I could believe you. But what if this epidemic was worse? What if in the end, nobody was spared?
Tranquila, contrólese.
You must get a hold of yourself, nurse.
Sorry, I'm exhausted. No one has any idea when this epidemic will be over.
La entiendo a la perfección, literalmente.
How long have you been a nurse?
Well, long enough to see that the epidemic is winning. And no matter how qualified you are, don't tell me you'll change that.
Le sorprendería.
You'd be surprised what dedication can achieve, Nurse Hawkins. In medicine, sometimes we're just a test result away from a miracle.
Sorry, Doctor. I don't want to sound bitter, but I'm just too tired to give a pep talk like Nurse Brannigan.
¿Cómo lo lleva el personal?
How is the Pembroke staff coping with the epidemic?
Well, not well. Milton, the ambulance driver, is even more grumpy than usual, especially concerning doctors.
Ahorita es el momento especial para preguntarle acerca de Milton, pero vamos a preguntar esto antes.
Why does Milton dislike doctors?
I don't know. Just ask him. But be warned, Milton is not the chatty type.
¿Por qué Milton tiene tan mal humor?
Why is Milton grumpy on a daily basis? Is it just an act?
Milton's not the kind of man who's bothered about a bad reputation, whether he deserved it or not.
Una pista más y ya tenemos el momento perfecto para preguntarle acerca de Milton.
Pepper, I know you're very close to Milton Hooks.
Yes, Milton Hooks is my man. If you want to report me for that, just feel free, Doctor.
I have no intention of reporting you, Nurse Hawkins, but are you aware of the risks?
The rules say I won't be allowed to work as a nurse anymore. But here at the Pembroke, we break rules all the time.
Is he worth the risk?
Hey, I'm no perfect woman, and Milton is not the finest bloke, but we do our best to get by. That's all any of us can hope for nowadays.
Está bien. Bueno, ya sabemos que ella le cobró la cama y el otro, pues, vamos a preguntarle directamente. ¿Usted es la cómplice de Milton?
Milton cheats patients out of their money at this hospital, Pippa. Are you his accomplice?
Yes, I am.
Is this your definition of being useful? By abusing the sick and poor?
No. It is my definition of getting out of this useless life once and for all.
¿De quién fue la idea?
Whose idea was it?
What difference does it make? We did it together, and I'm guilty as charged.
Answer my question.
It was my idea first, even though Milton would say it was his, to protect me.
O viceversa. ¿Por qué lo hizo?
Why do you do it?
Why not? Most of the sick who paid for a bed are already dead, or will be soon. Don't you see the futility of all this?
Qué mal. El cinismo no la salvará. Usted le pone precio a la esperanza. ¿Quién es usted realmente? ¿Será que sospechamos? El cinismo no la salvará.
In your position, I would suggest a more elaborate defense. Cynicism will not save you.
This isn't cynicism, it's realism. You still need me, Dr. Reed, and you know it.
Está bien.
Goodbye, Nurse Hawkins.
Después le vamos a preguntar quién es.
The pain. It's here again.
Bueno, vámonos pues. Tengo curiosidad de ir a interrogar al vendedor de armas.
Good evening, Milton.
Good evening, Doctor. Still trying to save lives?
Ya tenemos dos preguntas, Estamos resolviendo desde la primera noche que estamos aquí.
Why do you have such a mediocre reputation among your colleagues, Milton?
Fuck them. Nobody knows the horrors I've seen since working here. This city was sick long before the epidemic, Dr. Reed.
I know it's a difficult task, but correct me if I'm wrong. Is this not the job you are paid to do?
I've seen babies left to die while their brothers were properly fed. Underage girls and boys sold to all manner of perverts.
I'm sorry, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, exactly. We lack words. So excuse me if I don't look on the bright side of life.
Vamos a preguntarle acerca... Sabemos que es el cómplice de la enfermera Hawkins.
Admit it. Nurse Hawkins is more than your lover. She's also your partner in crime.
Of course she is. How else could I tell which bed is free? I need to know that.
Have you no shame?
Don't you see this city is crumbling down? Today people are ready to pay to get a hospital bed. Tomorrow we may be fighting for food.
Está bien, pues ya están desenmascarados. Ahora sí, quiero ver si podemos controlar la mente de la mujer que se cree vampiro. Según los documentos que leímos en nuestra habitación o nuestro laboratorio anoche, podemos cambiarle la mente o manipular la mente de las personas. Quizás podríamos curarlo. Vamos a intentarlo.
Good evening, Miss Howcroft. How are you tonight?
I need blood, Doctor. Warm, rich, vibrant blood.
Bueno, primero le vamos a preguntar acerca del otro que está ahí.
I'm assuming you must be a patient here. Am I right, Miss Howcroft?
It's only a cover. To hide from my enemies. I can leave whenever I want. As a woman, a spirit, fog, or bat.
Tell me, Thelma, why do you feel so attached to Mr. Elwood? Why him?
I'm not sure, Doctor. I think we have a bond of some sort. We've both suffered so much. He's the only mortal I find interesting.
¿Piensa convertirlo en vampiro? ¿Tienen una relación romántica? Primero la relación romántica.
Would you say you and Mr. Elwood are romantically involved?
No. No, Thomas is a delicate soul. Even though he disguises it. But I am not the woman he needs. No, for I am a vampire, Doctor.
¿Piensa convertirlo en vampiro?
Do you plan to make him a vampire too?
Of course not. How could I inflict my curse on anybody else? I'm not that cruel, Doctor.
Bueno, R1 para obtener detalles. Digo, chequeo médico y 3.
Do you require my services, Miss Howcroft?
I have no need for your medicine, Dr. Reed. Blood is the only drug I need.
R2 para verlo acá. Bueno. L2 para obtener detalles. Mesmerizar. Bueno, no podemos mesmerizar aún. Está bien.
I'll leave you, Mistress of the Dark.
Primero que sí la podemos curar.
I wonder what your last
thoughts would be so.
Y bueno, sé que fue un capítulo bastante tranquilón. Así que básicamente pura información, puras conversaciones y puras charlas en el hospital, lo cual no estuvo nada mal. Pero bueno, pues lo vamos a dejar aquí. Bueno, eso es todo. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme y hasta la próxima.